What's good, everyone? Thank you for stopping by to visit the channel for this upcoming playoff semifinal preview. If you want to stay updated in the world of college football, if you haven't done so already, click that subscribe button, click that notification bell, and select all so you won't miss out on another video. Also, like the video, it helps the channel grow, and give me your score prediction in the comment section below, even if you agree or disagree with my score prediction. So let's get down to it. We are talking Alabama and Notre Dame in the Rose Bowl, and because it is 2020, it is not playing in Pasadena, California. It is in Jerry World in Arlington, Texas. I'm not complaining because the playoff is actually happening this year. Now, usually we dive into the tail of the tape of advanced metrics of the two teams, but since we are in the postseason, I like to dive into the season-long resumes of both teams, do a little comparing and contrasting of the schedules based on the advanced metrics, the average defenses, offenses, best wins, and the opponent's similarity relative to their schedules. So without further ado, we're starting with the consensus #1 team in the country, the Alabama Crimson Tide. So everyone wanted to know what would happen if Alabama played a 9-game conference schedule. Well, here it is. They not only won 9 games, but they also won 2 more in the process. The Crimson Tide also produced 5 wins against teams ranked in the top 50 in F+, and doing this in a shortened season is impressive when you think about it. So do yourself a favor and stop hating on them. The Crimson Tide faced 0 teams ranked 90th or worse in the F+ rankings. In fact, their lowest ranked opponent was Missouri at 84th. Now, ironically, the best team that resembles Notre Dame on Alabama's schedule just so happens to be Texas A&M, with Georgia's running game and their offensive explosiveness is not falling too far behind. The Ole Miss comparison made me do a double take, but you must keep this in mind. The Notre Dame offense is not the wide-open misdirection attack that the Rebels use here, and this Alabama defense is not the same defense from early in the year when it gave up 379 yards passing through the air. The same could be said from the Georgia rushing attack, as the Bulldogs ran for 145 yards at 4.83 yards per carry. But if you followed Alabama this year, the second half of that game is where the defense began to turn the corner. Now, from an F+ standpoint, Notre Dame has the weakest schedule of the 4 playoff participants, with their opponent F+ ranking equivalent is LSU at 60th. Cannot believe those words have come out of my mouth before the season started, but that's another story for another day. But what drags Notre Dame's schedule down is Duke, Syracuse, and South Florida. All 3 of those teams are ranked 100th or worse, but the Irish has the best win among the playoff participants, which is Clemson, who is ranked 2nd in F+. But they had the unfortunate task of facing the Tigers again in the ACC championship game, and they did not fare too well in that second contest. Now, Clemson and North Carolina dominate the similarity of Alabama with Clemson's defense and North Carolina's passing game, and also the adjusted offensive success rate. Seeing Clemson's defense should not give Notre Dame fans a good feeling after last week, as the Irish was held to 4.53 yards per play and 10 points. The 4.53 yards per play was Notre Dame's lowest output of the season. Their best defensive game was against North Carolina's offense, when they absolutely smothered the Tar Heel offense, holding Carolina to 5.23 yards per play, which was their lowest offensive output of the season, and a season-low offensive success rate of 28%. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's take a look at the tail of the tape of advanced metrics. And as you can see, there are pushes in every category. Alabama is #1 in F+, SP+, FEI, and offensive SP+. The only thing I can say about Notre Dame's defense is they have been tested based on the offensive SP+ rankings for the teams they faced this year. They are the only team in the country who will play 3 of the top 5 offenses in that metric this year. The other 2 teams are North Carolina and Clemson. For the Crimson Tide, this will be the second top 10 defense their offense will face this year, having faced Georgia early in the year, and the Bulldogs are currently ranked 1st in defensive SP+. Alabama has a 78% win probability according to Bill Connolly's SP+ ranking, and Vegas opened up with Alabama as a 20-point favorite. Now, as we review this beautiful advanced box score designed by yours truly, and you can get all of these advanced box scores on my Twitter account, Alabama's first half was about as perfect as you can get. Alabama ran 25 more plays, they had a +13 success rate delta advantage, and their offensive success rate in the first half was at 57% while putting up 35 points in the process. Now, the second half was anything but fantastic relative to that first. The Crimson Tide had a -2 success rate delta and they were held to 17 points. And with that being said, all of those points came in the fourth quarter. Now, I say they had a terrible second half, but it was really a terrible third quarter when you look at that advanced box score. Now, the offensive performances from Mac Jones, DeVonta Smith, and Najee Harris stole the show. I don't need to go into detail as to what happened, but I don't think I've seen anything like it from Alabama's offense. Yikes. This was ugly. This was definitely the opposite of Notre Dame's first game against Clemson, where the Irish dominated the line of scrimmage. And honestly, this is why they won the game in that first go around. They forced Clemson to be one-dimensional while completely stuffing the run. Now, in the ACC championship, Clemson clearly won the advantage up front, as their defensive line did not allow Notre Dame to get any type of push in the running game, as they held the Irish to 1.29 line yards per carry, and Clemson stopped a ridiculous 33% of Notre Dame's carries at or behind the line of scrimmage. This was not the Clemson offensive and defensive lines from the first game, where they had multiple players injured, and this wasn't the same offensive line for Notre Dame in the first game either, since they lost their center Jared Patterson after the Boston College game. When Alabama has the ball, there is a huge advantage when you look under the hood at the advanced statistics. Now, if you want further knowledge of what these statistics are, do me a favor and click the link to the video of Advanced Stats 101 that goes in depth on what these numbers are. There are timestamps that will get you where you want to be. Now, as we head back to the graphic, there is a huge advantage for Alabama against a Notre Dame defense that is solid across the board. The biggest disadvantage is Notre Dame is ranked 53rd in defensive explosiveness, while Alabama is ranked 5th in that metric. It is going to be no secret to have Alabama's elite wide receivers, not just DeVonta Smith, to be put in isolated situations against Notre Dame's corners. If the Irish can't get to Mac Jones, it is going to be problematic. Now, Alabama's offensive line numbers for the first 11 games includes their center Landon Dickerson, who will be out for the playoff, and that is a tough loss for Alabama. Losing a Remington Award finalist and a potential All-American is going to be tough against Notre Dame's front that stops 28.7% of plays at or behind the line of scrimmage. Notre Dame must put Alabama behind the chains consistently in this game, and we know it's Alabama, and they recruit better than anyone in the country. But it is not going to be easy to replace a guy like that. Now, for Notre Dame, when they have the ball, I think this is simple for them. I think they're going to have to take shots deep down the field and take their chances against Alabama's secondary. Here's a problem with those deep shots, however. You must hold on to the ball long, and since they are slow developing routes, it is not what Notre Dame likes to do. And Alabama's pass rush has come alive in the last few weeks. Freshman phenom Will Anderson is the SEC sack leader with 7. Now, 7 sacks doesn't seem like it's a huge number, but when those sacks are coming in the last 4 weeks of the season, after he did not collect a single sack before then, this could be a problem. Notre Dame tackle Liam Eichenberg has played a lot of football, and he will have to negate that resurgent Crimson Tide pass rush on the edge. But I mentioned this earlier about holding onto the ball too long. Against Clemson, Ian Book did just that, and Clemson's pass rush was able to get after him. He can't do that against Alabama this time around. So he must make plays with his legs and extend drives against Alabama, so that way he can find those tight ends out in the flat or across the middle of the field. But I am not sure this is a game where Notre Dame is going to just line up and mash Alabama up front, since the Crimson Tide is allowing 77% of their opponent's rushing average, and also Alabama rotates guys a lot up front, so it's going to be tough to wear those guys down. The computer model has Alabama winning this game by the score of 45-21. The model is predicting Alabama will gain 7.31 yards per play, which is 93% of their usual yard per play average. Alabama comes into the game averaging 7.83 yards per play, and when you remove the defensive scores and the special team scores, Alabama is averaging 47.1 points a game on offense. And when you plug in those scores, Alabama is averaging close to 50 a game. And this is not a slight to Notre Dame's defense, because they are very good defensively. But Alabama's offense, for a lack of a better word, can be stressful, because they have a lot of weapons on that side of the rock. For Notre Dame, it has them gaining 5.45 yards per play, which is 86% of their usual yard per play average. Once you remove the non-offensive scores, Notre Dame is averaging 33.2 points a game. Alabama's defense is getting a lot of credit in the model, considering they are allowing just above 5 yards per play defensively, which is good for 19th in the country. I'm going to get into my score prediction in a little bit, but I want to start off by saying I don't think this is a good matchup for Notre Dame. I don't want Notre Dame fans to think that this is going to be like 2012 all over again when Alabama took control of the game from start to finish. I think they were up, I think they were up 35-0 at halftime. I don't think it is going to be anywhere similar to that. I think Notre Dame is much better than what they were 8 years ago. But just like how you're watching the NCAA tournament during March Madness, all that, it is all about matchups. And I find it difficult for them to match up with Alabama in this case. I got Alabama winning by the score of 45-24. I think Alabama is going to stress them to the point to where Notre Dame is trying to cover the entire field, and it's just going to be too much for them to do so. If Notre Dame's goal is to try to mash Alabama up front just to try to matriculate the football down the field and just play safe, I think this game may get ugly for them quick because they're trying to play perfect as opposed to just taking chances. And for me, this is similar to a basketball team that likes to slow the game down, but when they go up against a team that likes to press, run and jump, just play at 100 miles an hour, generate multiple possessions, try to turn the game into a track meet in that sense, I think this is not what Notre Dame likes to do. I think if this was a similar team to their style of play, kind of like Georgia in a sense, to where they like to run and test your manhood up front, and instead of playing against a wide open offense in Alabama that's multiple and can do all of those things, I think if they were to play a team like Georgia that plays into their wheelhouse and plays into their strengths a little bit more, as opposed to playing against Alabama. With that being said, that is all I got for this bowl game preview. Let me know what your thoughts are in the game in the comment section below. Give me your score prediction. Tell me why your respective team is going to win the game. I hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a like. And if you love college football as much as I do, hit the subscribe button if you want to stay updated with the latest previews and the occasional highlights. And as always, thanks for visiting the channel, and thank you all for watching.